Hey, what's up guys? This is Brian at Whisper Status 74. The video today will be upscaling of cable TV content for the Vizio Quantum XP series 75 inches, which is behind me. I'll be comparing it to the Sony 900E, which is to my left, which is a 2017 display versus a 2019. The Sony is known for its upscaling and its processing, even though it is the older chip. It upscales 720p content better than most displays. The Vizio has been known to really struggle, especially its 4K models, with upscaling. And to talk a little bit about that, spending some time with it before we go into any comparisons. As comparisons with cable TV is very difficult due to copyright. Right now I'm just in the menus. I will try to look at some local channels back and forth. I can't really show you anything split screen. I don't have that editing going on yet, but it's not like a movie where I can pause and go back and forth. There's no DVRs down here. But I will say that spending time with the Vizio, it's a lot like the other parts of Vizio, is that it handles everything with brute strength. Everything is too strong, too bright, too noisy. So in order to really make the very bright 4K Vizio look anything like the upscaling of the Sony, there's so much disabling that has to go on. There is a lot of settings. The Vizio is definitely not a display that out of the box is very handsome. It doesn't have, it really needs to be pushed back. It handles everything it goes at everything hard. Super bright. It's got too much noise in the image. It's not colorful enough. So there's a lot of messing with the settings that you have to do as an owner, which I think turns a lot of people off, especially with the upscaling with this model. I think they take it out of the box and right away, a lot like some of the Samsung displays where they're so bright and they're so sharp that they're almost noisy because it's an upscaled image instead of a native image. You put a native 4K image on this, the comparison gets very far apart. Something lower than that, the Vizio definitely has a noisier image, is what you hear in a lot of the content or a lot of the reviews, is things are blocky. I don't feel that it's blocky. I feel that things are just a little bit more noisy. And in order to combat that, it's taking the sharpness all the way down. It's things like, what are odd, the local dimming behaves very differently on this set, where I have to disable local dimming, which I would never dream of doing with a full array display. Disable it, put it in calibrated dark, and make it look as dark as possible to make it look like a normal display that would be showing 1080p content. So, is it a strength? It is definitely not a strength of the Vizio Quantum XP series for the reasons I just laid out. Is it a weakness? I'm not a big proponent of thinking upscaling is magic and it makes 720p content look 4K. I've never really seen that on any display. OLEDs, the highest end displays out there, I've never seen them turn 720p into 4K. I've seen them make it look nice. I think the 900E does a great job, but it would all depend on what you're watching. I would say that it does it fine. The Super Bowl was fine on it. I would say the Super Bowl probably looked better on the Sony 900E. It's not nearly as bright. It has a more natural image. The Vizio has a less natural image. You have to really mess with the settings. I would say if you're buying the Vizio, I know I'm doing this kind of wrap up already before I even show you. I'd say if you were buying the Vizio for cable TV alone, it's not the best choice. I wouldn't say you can't buy it for that. I wouldn't say it's such an Achilles heel that it absolutely cripples it. As of right now, I'm looking at the menus of both for Altice, which is formerly Optimum, and there is no more aliasing on this. The numbers are clear. The numbers are clear. We'll show that in the video when I switch the camera the other way, and we'll look at some local news. It's hard to show things like for like. Copyright is brutal on YouTube, especially with local TV, not local TV, but network TV. So we'll do the best we can to show some upscaling comparisons, and you guys will be the judge. But the Vizio, I'm very happy with it. The reason I'm doing these tests as well is I actually have a buyer for both the Vizio and for my Sony 900E. As a creator, I'm going to have to probably buy more TVs on the road, so I probably won't be keeping either of them, but I bought this display with that in mind. I had a few people that wanted to purchase it. The reason for this test is one of them only watches cable network TV, so it might be a no-go if it doesn't look that great. All right, guys, we'll show some comparisons, and we'll see how it looks from behind the camera. Now here we are looking at the guide. We're looking at News 12. We're going through the settings on the Vizio. We're in calibrated dark mode. You'll see that As we get down to the picture settings, we have color temperatures at normal, black detail is at medium, full array is off, which again typically would show blooming or show haloing. It does not do that with the Vizio in regards to cable TV viewing, interestingly enough. Reduce noise we have on low. They can probably turn that off, but it does, for me, look the best as far as removing that noise. But these are some settings you're going to have to mess with a little bit. The Vizio is one of the displays, especially with older films, where this actually does work. The reducing of the block noise, the reduce of the signal noise actually does work. It will result in a blurrier image, though. But it does work, where a lot of other displays I've seen, they basically don't do anything. Latency's off, color space is auto, gamma, I do like a 2.4, I do like a little bit of a darker image. I don't want it to be too washed out. But you can tell by the text, everything is clean. The text itself isn't have any aliasing, it doesn't look jagged or anything like that. Where when I do turn you to the Sony, and now here we are at the Sony with the same menu, it doesn't seem, the A on the options menu in the corner, which you can't see right now because I have the menu in the way. So the A on the Sony's maybe a little bit more dim. It's not quite as sharp, but it's maybe a little bit softer. Let me get over to the adjustments on the Sony. Sorry, I have to keep switching back. Tripods are, not cinema home. And very standard options. Full array is on for the Sony, but I don't think the Vizio looks worse. The Sony does look a little bit sharper without washing it out at all. It has a deeper look to it, but I had to disable the local dimming on the Vizio to make it look less noisy. It has a very aggressive local dimming. Here's the Vizio again. The text looks very similar to what it did on the Sony. Again, the Sony looks a little bit softer, but not noisy enough to where the Vizio would look terrible, even with the commercials in the corner. I'm looking at some photos here, or some images here. What's funny is being 720p, my camera's having issues with it. But you're looking at 720p. Local news. I'm going to just literally turn the camera because it's making me nuts. And there's the Sony. And then back to the Vizio. Sorry I have to do it this way. It's just live TV is tough. Vizio. Sony. So though the Vizio, we'd say there's not the upscaling champ, I don't really see a huge difference in it to where I would say you can't buy this TV on the upscaling alone. It's being filmed in 4K. And again, sorry I have to do it this way, but that's a News 12. So that's the Vizio. That's the Sony. Now we'll do just a few more. I wish I could give you guys more than this. It's just not something that, YouTube is brutal. That's the Vizio again. Wow, it's horrible on the Sony too. Those local feed cameras, they're terrible. That's the Sony 900E. Vizio P-Series. I know it's not a great comparison, but this is pretty indicative of what you'll see on all the other channels. This is just the one I can kind of put on here without getting flagged by the NFL or the NBA or anything. And here's back to the Sony 900E. A lot of weather. And here's the Vizio. Now we're even closer to it. They look very similar. I imagine the newer Sonys would be better, but as far as it being a real Achilles heel, I don't really see it as being a super weakness. Not a super strength, but not a super weakness. One more time. Sony 900E. Now, I'm sorry I couldn't make that better for you guys as far as a comparison, but it is indicative of how the rest of the cable looks. If I was comparing the Super Bowl to that in terms of how close they were. But keep in mind, the Vizio does need a lot of work in terms of its settings. The processing on TCL, Hisense, and Vizio, I feel, will always be behind more established companies. But you can get it close with the settings. Just a lot of work needs to be done. It's not a great out-of-the-box display, but it can be used as a cable TV display. I wouldn't really recommend it if that was all you're doing, as Sony and those other companies just have better processing if that's all you're doing. But if you're doing some cable, a lot of streaming, the Vizio is an excellent, excellent value. We'll have a full review on it, but I've enjoyed my time with it. And though it wasn't the kind of comparison I wish I could do, it's as close as I could do without the NFL or the NBA or anybody jumping on me. But it is pretty much how they look on cable in comparison to one another. All right, guys, thank you as always. We'll also be in Best Buy in the next few days to see how the sales are after Super Bowl and if there's many displays there being returned after the game. I hope everyone is doing amazing. I will talk to you soon. Take care.